Welcome to The Disruption Is Now. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore how AI is impacting our jobs, careers, lives, and the human experience. Each episode, host Greg Matusky will converse with visionaries and innovators at the forefront of AI, diving into its challenges, opportunities, and impact. So buckle up as we venture into the heart of disruption, and together, let's unfold the future.
Well, welcome to another episode of The Disruption Is Now. I'm your host, Greg Matusky. This is the podcast where we talk about AI and how it's disrupting everything from culture to commerce to communications. And we always like to talk about the most astounding parts of AI. And over my career, I've had the great opportunity to interview a lot of people in machine learning. And one of the things they always seem to come back to is when ChatGPT came out, and it was natural language. That seems to be the real demarcation point in the history of artificial intelligence. Before that, it was left to the coders and the programmers to really dig deep to make AI effective for us to use. And then the switch got flipped, and all of a sudden, somebody like myself who's made their living with language was effectively a programmer or coder. I'm here to talk today with Trevor Seim. He's the head of sales of Kognitos. I said that right?
Kognitos, yeah.
And I'm interested because they're really focusing on large enterprise and mid-sized enterprises in how they get them to adopt AI and the solutions they can provide. Trevor, thanks for being with us. Tell me a little bit about your journey. I always like to start here into AI and how it came to you and where you were and where you are now.
I mean, I think AI has been, everyone's seen the adoption of AI, right? It's from the end user productivity tools you talked about with GPT, Gemini, and we saw lots of use cases for making AI a substantial component of making end users more productive. There's natural extensions into the business, and so my philosophy here and what we're looking at is how do we look at platforms, technologies, and tools that can, simply take some of the productivity gains we're seeing with the end user, and how do we extrapolate those and push those across, our enterprise customers? And this has been a, I think if you look at all of the media in the markets today, it's every executive has been tasked with use AI. It makes you more competitive. It gives you a 10x return, et cetera. But most of the executives now are looking at this and saying, well, that's awesome. I'd love to use AI. I need to have a safe place to begin my journey with AI. I am looking internally at my teams. I've got potentially skills gaps to be able to accommodate AI, and I need help. So, a la, the journey to Kognitos is,
and then walk through with me that process of help. Does it begin with evaluating the workflow of the company? Does it begin with the employee base? Does it begin at the C-suite and the CEO? I mean, change is such a hard thing. And in my own firm, I'm very proud of the fact that we were early adopters of AI, but it was all driven by the top. I had a fascination for it. I was obsessed with it. I created an environment where people could celebrate it. They were never penalized. We set standards right away of what is right and what is wrong. But in an enterprise where it's not entrepreneurially driven, how do you impact change? What are those steps, Trevor, that enterprises have to take to really see more than just, hey, this will help you write your emails faster, or it'll create really cool little memes for you to send out. So give me some insights into that.
Well, I think executive sponsorship is certainly, a defining tenet of the people's willingness to gravitate and bring on AI. But in reality, it's the natural extensions of the productivity gains that users see in some operational tasks like email generation, but extrapolated it across some of those larger workflow processes that exist in the enterprise, where we have the ability to help customers, help organizations, now automate a variety of steps, whether they're complex steps in supply chain, whether it's, in, the, I'll call it
What
the fine.
One of the things I saw on your site was a brilliant case study. Congratulations, from I think it was JB Interiors. I might have the name of the
JDI. Yep.
JBI Interiors, and I guess they're the last trade in on a construction process where they do a lot of the finishing work as far as wood and metal and iconic work. And that was interesting to me because here you have a business that just seems like an old line business, that you're taking plans, you're reading plans, you're creating product, right? And within that, there's such a realm for error and friction. Tell us a little bit about that kind of thing and how a company that you wouldn't expect would find great productivity and user benefits from AI and have.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it starts with the foundation of what we're bringing to our clients, right? So at Cognitos, we are delivering a hallucination-free AI platform designed to automate business processes, right? So, and it's meant to deliver this in what we led off with, delivering this interfacing and interaction with AI in plain English, using technologies that are built for scale, built for transparency, and built to ensure that the business now understands and has command over AI being used in the workplace. So understanding that, we now have a platform that, mitigates risk in deployments, that gives visibility and observability to how organizations are using AI, we can now tackle a lot of, very interesting objectives at, clients like JBI, clients like PepsiCo, where we're tackling back office operations and finance and accounting, where, we really can't tolerate any sort of, hallucination or interpretation of data. We need to ensure that we have the ability to have a concrete outcome and a deterministic, output from AI. And this is
And
where
how do you do that? What's the steps for creating a hallucination-free AI platform?
Sure.
That's one of the big scaries. You hear it all the time, that it's not just, it just doesn't make things up sometimes. It's also highly inconsistent. So what's the magic there to reducing the false negatives, false positives?
That's great. I mean, so, it really starts with the concept of understanding that, AI in general is a goal-orientated outcome of deliverables. So you essentially give it a task, it will do whatever it can to achieve said task, using a variety of creative measures to get there. And what that means is, anytime that you use a goal-oriented outcome, your answers may vary. It may come back and solve the problem one way, may come back solve the problem another way. So what we've come up with is a neurosymbolic architecture. Now, neurosymbolic essentially means that we are using the best of Gen AI, the ability to understand the workflows that you're trying to achieve. We are, using Gen AI to, create English as code to codify the workflow and the processes. And we're going to create that into a very deterministic decision tree. So every time we run through a process, this now process that has been creating, is deterministic and will give you a very consistent output every time you put something through this type of workflow.
So is this your own LLM, or this is built on top of an array of LLMs? This is a framework on top of it? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. So essentially what we do is anytime we engage with the client and we understand a workflow, we either take a PDD, some sort of SOP, some sort of written documentation saying, hey, this is what the steps are. The knowledge of the employee today is documenting what are the steps and the tasks that we're trying to achieve today. What we do then is we take that and we put this into our platform, and that will then use Gen AI to understand what are the tasks that are trying to be accomplished. From there, we will then, translate that into English as code so that we can have clear, written, concise actions of all of the steps that are being taken and all of the decision points that are being taken, so that we can now read in simple English and read in plain English. What is the workflow and what are the outputs? So, once we go through the modeling of what is the workflow we're trying to create, we've got a very, very process-driven agent to ensure that we have a very consistent and defined outcome every single time we engage with our clients.
So this sounds like the often referred to, not so generally seen, agentic approach to AI. Am I right there that you're using an agent to do this kind of thing, to apply the work to the deterministic work path, and then determine if it's right on mark, and then come up with a solution? Am I right on that, or am I making assumptions, Trevor?
No, you are correct. Yeah. So our platform is an agentic platform. What makes us different is we are a neurosymbolic platform that does design out any hallucinations.
Got you. And that's been one of the, I think, handcuffs to big enterprises is that, I mean, there was a study recently, I forgot the source, that said how many large AI projects within enterprises have not resulted in the kind of solutions that were sought. And I think a lot of it is this very issue, is that for whatever reason, they couldn't make it deterministic. They couldn't, there was something going on within the environment of agents, which was opening itself up to inconsistencies. So,
I think you're right. I mean, like, so we see so often customers have embraced a journey to try to run down the path of AI, and the stats would say that most AI endeavors, if they're trying to build it themselves, won't see a return for 5 years. The stats would say that 1/3 of CEOs don't trust AI. So what we're trying to figure out is, and we're trying to come to market with a platform that not only tackles this notion of, providing, trust and transparency into an AI platform, but making AI much more approachable to the 99%, right? So any of the other tools that are out in the market today, require developers, and they require developers that carry deep skill sets in Python, right? And this is meaning that AI is really only approachable to the 1% of the population that knows how to actually communicate with AI for said tasks that are enterprise workflow related. And our belief is this: is our belief is, much like we talked about at the very beginning for engineer productivity tools, we need to extend that experience, and we need to extend that experience into all of enterprise operations, ensuring now that by using the Kognitos platform, we can now have, all of the line of business experts interface with AI. Okay? When we create this English as code, a line of business expert now has the ability to simply engage with the platform, take advantage of all of the autonomous operations that occur. Like, our goal is, to have full run through of these workflows. But if there is an exception that's created, right, we need to be able to make sure that the user that is trying to teach AI what to do, or the user that has the domain knowledge, should be able to interface with AI. And that user is typically the line of business executive.
Trevor, help me with something. You said something interesting. The 1/3 of CEOs don't trust AI, and yet you're on the front line, right? You're out there introducing this to clients, demoing it to clients, working with them. How do you overcome that type of skepticism? What do you do to open somebody's mind who doesn't trust the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we really try to talk about is, we try to talk to our clients about, understanding that, adopting AI is a skill. And so we need to take some time and ensure that we can help our customers adopt AI. But we also need to give them the confidence that we can give them control and command of any sort of AI endeavor that they are trying to deploy. So we like to think about it as, giving our enterprise clients a steering wheel for AI, so that they now have the ability to actually control the trajectory of AI and give them better command over how AI is being used, and the confidence of how AI is being used by using English as code. So now all of a sudden what we've done is we've now codified in English, so any non-technical user can understand every single step of the process that we are using with AI. They can understand how the data is being used, where the data is being moved, how the decisions are being made. And we are now also creating um, a engagement with the line of business anytime that something is uh, an exception. So an exception would be one of those areas where uh, if a purchase order that we're processing is being run through our process and it doesn't have a price point or it doesn't have some critical information, how do we ensure that we can get human intervention on this to make sure we're making the right decision? So we call that an exception. And in our world, instead of sending a complex technical message to somebody to go solve the problem, what we simply do is redirect to the line of business user. And that line of business user would have a exception that would simply state, price not found on quote or on order, please help. And it would give them the information they need to have so they can go through and help us and reinforce the model so that we can now learn and have reinforcement learning to ensure that if we ran across that same issue again, we might be able to solve that problem ourselves.
So where do you think we stand in the adoption cycle now? I mean, you've seen this. You've been in place now for a while with what you've been marketing, and how has it changed? And what is the level of understanding? Where do you begin, and how has it advanced?
Yeah, I think the adoption is definitely on the upswing. I think all customers and all organizations understand that they don't embrace AI, right? They're at a competitive disadvantage. So now it's about trying to figure out how do we use AI in the areas that are going to give us the most success, to give us the skills and the confidence to be able to use AI for more use cases. And so what we typically advise our clients to look at is a lot of the things that might be deemed maybe a little more uninteresting, right? So, where are the manual and repetitive processes that exist? Where do customers have a high transaction volume? And how can we help kind of alleviate the pain of processing, you know, these types of tasks? So a lot of the great use cases are procure to pay, order to cash, things that are back office. It's a great place to start to build the skills and the competence in AI before you start to, look into other facets of the business where we can still have a tremendous impact. But if we talk about the crawl, walk, run, it's a great place to learn the skills and to set your expectations of how do we engage with AI? How can I deploy AI in my environment that I can trust? And how do I get the confidence that we're going to get a solid financial return with AI? And foundationally, this is where we've seen great starts with many of our clients today.
So how much of this is really reworking the workflow to ready it for AI? And how much is it just the application of AI? What I mean by that is if you AI enable a bad process, you've done yourself no service. So how much of this is kind of consulting up front, and how much of it is actually the deployment of the solution?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I would make the claim that even automating a inefficient process would still have some gains because with automation we are still running 24/7. We will still ensure consistent delivery of results. We don't go on holiday, right? We're working on your behalf all the time. Now that being said, we also have the capability within our product to do process refinement. So, as we're going through this, many of the times that we work with our customers, we will look for some optimization at the onset to try to ensure that we have a very streamlined approach. But in the event that workflows change, and many of our clients would tell you that 100% workflows will change, our business may change, our customer requirements may change. Okay, no problem. We can simply use our process refinement engines and go through and try to ensure that we are building and delivering the most, I'll call it the most efficient process possible and we can adapt as the business requirements change too.
So I got two last questions for you. And this one, I'm going to ask you to think for a second outside of just the business. And what has surprised you most about this transformation, about the AI revolution?
I think it's a good question. I think for me personally, what surprised me is the two varied approaches to trying to bring AI into organizations. We see an approach which is, from the left, from end user productivity, extending into code development, extending into workflow process automation, extending into other value-added service for the enterprise. And then we see organizations that are jumping into the deep end on the right, creating their own inference models, creating their own LLMs, and really building, what they believe AI, can be for their enterprise. And, what I have been surprised by is, I don't think there's any wrong approach. I think that, it's a question of how fast you want to have a return on your investment and how predictable do you want your experience with AI to be. And if you want a fast return and if you want a very predictable experience, I think this is where looking at tools like Kognitos that are on this journey on the other side of the spectrum really make AI more approachable, really make AI more consumable, and also carry very good financial returns for customers as they build the skill sets toward AI. Ultimately, I think down the road, many organizations are going to be really looking at the bespoke nature of AI, how it can improve their business. But today, it's really how do we work with those clients today, and how do we get people to be thinking about how do we make AI a success internally so that we have the credibility to further our usage of AI. And that's really going to be around, creating a risk-free adoption of AI with a solid financial return. And we like to think that we help with that.
So my last question then, how far away are we from what I call the autonomous revenue generating enterprise? You're in the heart of automation. And I would look at something like Amazon, where perhaps someday it'll have no employees, that orders will come in to a warehouse. There'll be autonomous warehouse robots fulfilling that. There'll be self-driving vehicles to deliver that, and it will autonomously generate revenue. How far away are we seeing your experience in the automation process? Where do we stand?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting question. I think we're a ways out from I'll call it full turnkey automation to revenue. There's always going to be a heavy investment, and it's the unique. And I think the thing I always think about is it is always been and will always be the core IP of each organization that we're working with that gives them that unique customer experience. So if we rely on automation to just push out automation for the sake of automation, it may lose some of that tailored nature and that experience that customers are always looking for. So for me, I think we're still a ways down the journey. I think if I were to say can we take advantage of automation today and drive in fantastic returns and drive in great efficiencies to focus on the bigger problem statements that exist within a company, I think this is the real inflection point for the next 24 months, right? Figure out a way to become skilled in AI, figure out a way to take your valuable people, your valuable resources, and focus them on the next business problem and help your organization become more efficient and more effective using AI as a core foundation to becoming the next great enterprise that our customers want to be.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, Trevor. And again, it's Kognitos, and it's kognitos.com. Great website. I could actually understand what you were saying. So kudos to you. So many, I get confused in the jargon. And that wraps it for another episode of The Disruption Is Now. And I want to thank Trevor for being with us. I think there's a lot of sage advice on what we're seeing in automating both business services and the manufacturing sector with regard to what AI brings to large enterprises. So thanks again.
Greg, thank you for your time.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion today and want to continue exploring the transformative power of AI, please check out more episodes and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.